When would we not talk about what's really going on behind the scenes? Kate, I got dressed this morning with the intention to look cute, and then I was like, never mind. And then I just threw on a hat, but then I was like, I don't want to take off this dress either. So I have.
It looks cute though.
It looks cute, but like even Garrett was like, "Are you taking up tennis?" And then his parents are in town, and they're like, "Oh, do you have a tennis match?" I was like, "No, I just wanted to wear this hat and this dress. So no, I'm not going to play tennis."
Hey, we're gonna start with the game.
Okay, what is this game?
The game's called Fucked Up, Fired Up.
Oh, I missed this.
So nothing business related.
Okay,
Nothing.
okay.
What is something fucked up that's happened in the past week and something you're fired up about?
Fucked up. Does it have to be bad or?
I mean, it's fucked up. Fucked up is fucked up.
Fucked up.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, do you want me to start?
You start. I'm gotta
All right.
collect my thoughts.
Here's my fucked up. I've been telling everybody this today.
Uh-oh.
So my boyfriend and I have a 75-pound German Shepherd poodle, and she won't poop in the backyard. She won't do it, so I have to take her for a walk, like 3 walks a day to go poop. Totally fine,
Weird.
not a big deal. So a few days ago, I was taking her for her nightly walk, and normally I just grab, because you have to pick it up, I just grab the bag, like throw it by the trash cans, walk inside, let her in, come back out and pick it up. I forgot to come back out. So the next morning, I'm leaving for work, backing up, and I hear... And I was like, oh, no.
Ew.
I got out of my car and
Yeah, like smushed into your tires.
Oh, ma'am. Yep. And I had to clean it up. And
why
I'm
would
sitting
you
here
clean it up? Why don't you have a car wash guy come over and spray that shit out? Literally,
because it was in my garage, smushed
yeah.
because I ran over it. So that's my fucked up. It was gross. I will never do that again. But that was pretty messed up for me.
I'm like trying to think. I'm like, do I have something that matches that story? I don't have anything that's like weird that happened like that this week. I'm sorry.
Nothing's fucked. Nothing. Not even one thing that you're like, ugh.
Oh, no. No, honestly, I can't.
Cool, Danielle.
I can't think of anything that I'm like, ooh, like my kids are pretty good this week. Like,
all right, go back a whole month. Anything in the past month that's happened that's fucked up.
that's fucked up, man. Okay, I don't know if this isn't really fucked up either. I have nothing.
Tell
nothing.
me. Now I want to hear it.
I have, so at our new house, we have it's called a cliff off the master bedroom into the pool.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a 15-foot drop. And on Mother's Day, I had some champagne, and I actually am scared of heights, and I feel more comfortable backflipping off of things, whether I've been drinking or not drinking. I just am like, I'm flippy.
Probably because you don't see it.
I don't see it. I just trust that I can get around, and I'm like, I got this. And I'm like on the balcony. I'd only had like 1 glass of champagne, and Garrett's like, "Are you gonna do a backflip?" I'm like, "Yeah, yep, I think I am." He's like, "Well, careful, like don't overshoot it." And I'm like, "I'm not gonna overshoot it." And I like literally, he's like, "You were like inches from the ledge, like, and the ledge is like." Off the, it's
off a cliff.
It's an endless pool that just goes down, and not a cliff, but I would have been seriously injured. Yeah, but I felt safe the whole time. I mean,
that's pretty fucked up. Actually,
I knew I'd make it around. Like I felt fine. Like everyone, I come up and everyone's all, and I'm like, what? I'm like looking at their faces, and they're like, don't ever do that again. And I was like, I'm like, I felt like I got around just fine. They're like, you were so close. But
ooh, that's dangerous.
Yeah, it was dangerous. So I'm not gonna do that again.
Ooh, and then fired up.
Something
you're just stoked about. Nothing work related.
Stoked about. I helped Ruby do a lemonade stand yesterday, and it was really cute. And I taught her the principles of like, so I went and bought all this lemonade. I spent like $30 or something. And then she made $40. And I was like, you made $10. She's like, no, I made 40. And she's like super pumped. So that I'm telling her like, okay, if you put the money here, and then I like made her repeat it. And I was like, so do you understand how business works? And she goes, yeah. She goes, that's bad. I'm just going to work at Starbucks. And I go, do you want to work at Starbucks or do you want to own a Starbucks? She goes, I want to own a Starbucks. And I was like, okay, well then you got to remember that to make money, you got to invest, and this is how it works. Anyways, it was like a fun like little teaching moment, and I felt like the biggest dork because I'm like in our neighborhood, which is like a pretty nice neighborhood, and we like have a little lemonade stand, and I'm like, she won't let me leave. Like she's like, Mom, you have to be here, and I have like an umbrella, and I'm hiding under the umbrella because I don't want to be like a mom that's trying to like sell lemonade. But it was fun.
Okay, but that's really cute.
It was cute.
Mine, I went surfing Saturday. It was probably one of the best lessons I've had to date. I fucking crushed it.
Oh.
And we're going to start going pretty heavy for the summer because July 5th, I'm going to the surf ranch.
You are going to do that?
I'm going. Yeah, he invited me.
The one in
It's in California, not
it's
the
in
one in
Cal-
Waco.
okay.
Yeah, this is the Kelly Slater Surf Ranch. Apparently, he's like the best surfer ever.
Oh, I've heard of that
And
one.
he, they say it's impossible to get into. Mo, my surf coach, said it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to go. It's like $3,000 a person for like.
How does Mo? Because Garrett was telling me that. How does Mo know this?
No
guy?
idea, but Mo I don't know if he knows the guy, but it's like you just get in somehow. So he
Yeah.
somehow got a day, and so he invited me. I was like, Garrett, I know this is normally like a guy's thing, but are you cool if I go?
So you're going?
Yeah, I'm going. Garrett messaged me this morning because I literally
funny.
asked. I was like, I'm not going to intrude on your guy time. I know this is your thing. You were here before me. These are your friends. Mo invited
It's
me.
probably like I feel like those wave parks are like safe and predictable, and
They
like,
are. And
yeah.
they say if you want to get good, that's where you go. So I'm fucking jazzed. Mo, he's like, you're good enough to go. And I was like, okay, but I want to be even better now. So he's chasing surf waves in Mexico right now. I'm like, when you get back, we need to make a full like 3-month plan. Oh yeah.
Well-
this is like your competition. I'm like in it now.
I just can't commit to surfing, but good for you.
It's like your fitness competition. I can't commit to that because I don't care.
Yeah,
But
yeah, you got to
this-
be into it.
Oh.
Which I forgot I signed up for another one.
I know. I can't believe you didn't say that,
I
but
know.
that's okay.
Because you know what? I'm kind of nervous again. I'm like, I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to be able to do it. It's not going to happen. I'm going through this self-doubting phase. And then like literally like a month out, all of a sudden I'm like, all right, I call her Disciplined Danielle. She comes out and she just like murders it. And I'm like, okay.
Not shit-faced Sally anymore.
Not shit-faced Sally anymore.
God,
Just, yeah.
see, I feel like I go into things almost with the opposite mindset. Do I think I'm a phenomenal surfer? No, I can't even paddle over it myself. I still need a boost, but I tell myself, I'm like, no, you're gonna be great, and you're gonna fucking do it. Like I go into like opposite, not like, oh girl, you can't do it. I was like, you got this. You're fucking brilliant.
You're
and
gonna do it.
You're amazing, and I'm gonna get there, and I'm just gonna impress myself. So.
Eventually I get there. It's just like I just like to self-doubt for a good solid 2 weeks right after.
See, I like amp myself up. So
all right.
I loved it. Cool.
Good job.
All right. So let's talk about this podcast today. We have
we were like, what should we talk about? We had a spicy meeting on Friday.
Yeah.
And it was, you know what? So I think as closely as you, me, and Katie. Katie's our, what is her official
Director of
title?
Operations.
Director of Operations. I feel like us three like work so closely together. Like we joke around and we're like, 3 30-year-olds are literally running the hair empire, but like
but literally.
really. And so sometimes I feel like we get a little like overworked, and then it's like when you're overworked and you yell at your husband or your boyfriend or whatever, and you're just like tired, and you're like, and you start making up stories, like legit stories in your mind why things are happening, trying to justify the way, at least I feel like I do this. Like it's like we're women, so we just literally like stories after stories. So we had been all working like crazy for the past like how many classes in a row did we have?
It's been a month of classes.
Like this, I woke up this Monday and I was like, we don't have class today because we'd had them every Monday for 5 weeks, and it's not that I couldn't handle like everything that was going on, but it was more than what we were used to putting out.
It wears on you.
It wears
like,
on
let's
you.
be clear. It just wears on you.
Well, and we're trying to build stuff too. We relaunched a whole new, beautiful online academy. My online academy is a 12-month program that's both virtual and in-person courses, and like it's beautiful. We relaunched. Like there was a lot going behind the scenes. There was a lot of selling and pitching and this and that, and like there was just a lot going on.
There was so much.
So much going on. and I feel like we use this tool called Voxer, and sometimes I have to be honest, like sometimes I don't get like bugged easy, but whenever I'm bugged, I'll be like, I use Garrett as my sounding board.
Oh, that's a scary sound.
I know.
See, look, you know what? Garrett's he's too extreme.
He's extreme. And I forget with Garrett, like Garrett is a different boss than I am, right?
Night and day difference.
Like so different. And so he'll always tell me like, Danielle, you just need to be the bitch. You need to let the bitch out. You need to like throw down the law. You need to like, and I'm like, I get that. Like I feel like I'm a powerful person, but I don't feel like I'm like I hear him sometimes like talking to his people, although they're guys.
Ma'am, I've been on the other side
and
of
I
that.
am like peeing my pants. I'm like, who are you talking to? You sounded like you were gonna murder them. Like it's frightening. He doesn't talk to me like that. Thank God
I have been on the other side.
But like
of
when
that,
it
so
comes
I'm
to
aware.
business, like Garrett is a murderer. Like it's just
which I feel is fine for some things. It doesn't always work though. Like
yeah, he's really good at not just like leaving people dangling. Like he'll kind of like throw you off the cliff and then like bring you back. You know what I mean? But he's always like telling me like you just need this, and so like anyways, we had an incident where like a detail was dropped. I was irritated. I was frustrated. I kind of like jumped on this tool called Voxer. I'm like, fuck you guys. Why aren't these details done? Da, 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 da. But it was like a collaboration of like a bunch of things throughout the week and the month. And I'm like, fuck you. Anyways, so then it's like dead silent. And then I get a message from our CFO, Jeff, who's like, how do you believe that you're showing up as a leader? And I was like, Jeff, I will murder you in your sleep. And so then I called him right away. I'm like, which one of my girls came to you and told you that I was mean to them this morning? And he was like, well, I'm just, and Jeff, he's like a robot.
Jeff is neutral. And I feel like that's why Jeff is such a great sounding board, because he's neutral. He does not get overly emotional. He doesn't raise his voice. Like,
no.
You want a sounding board? It's Jeff.
And even though like I was triggered, like even the minute I get on a call with Jeff, like he literally is like a therapist. He's so calm. And then he asks you things in questions.
Oh, yeah. He doesn't tell you shit.
No.
He says, well, what about? And
like,
how do you?
And then you answer your own question and you're literally like, damn it, you're good. Like, that's so true in this moment. So we had this conversation. I'm like telling him, I'm just frustrated and hurt. I feel like the girls are tattling on me. I didn't, read the Voxer correctly, whatever. And then anyways, I was like, we're having a meeting. I'm going to address this. And he's like, is this the importance of the meeting? I'm like, And I was like, maybe I shouldn't say anything. It's not, maybe I should, maybe I'm just being butthurt about it. I'm just being stupid. I'm just emotional, like whatever. Maybe I shouldn't talk about it. But I was so glad I did. And even though, because I actually saw stuff in myself where I was like, all of a sudden it was like I could see through your lens and Katie's lens. And I was like, oh, like I had been probably creating a lot of stories in my mind. You know what I mean? And so even though I hate confrontation, I can't remember on the the color scale how everybody's like red, yellow, green.
Yeah.
I'm like I do not like confrontation. I love having fun. Like that's just like my personality. So for me, communication has been something that I've had to work at really, 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 really hard. But communication, it's hard, but it's easy in the sense that because I hate conflict, it forces me to communicate so that there is no weird feelings and there is no conflict, right? Yeah. So a lot of times I come out and I just am like word vomit. I'm very direct. I'm like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Like I have to address this, like whatever it is. So we had a tough conversation. Like it was a tough conversation and it ended really well, in my opinion, and I was glad, even though we had so many other things to talk about in that meeting, that was something that had to get addressed because I had felt disrespected, and then you had felt disrespected. Yeah. And even in a work relationship, if you don't identify the underlying issues of why that person is feeling disrespected, then you're always going to have this weird energy. So for me, after that meeting, a little bit of weight was lifted. You know what I mean? I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit better.
I still had to go home and stack part of the meeting.
Oh my God.
I was mad until the next day.
Okay.
I'll admit it.
I told Garrett and I was like, hey, I'm going to send Katie and Ani both a gratitude stack. And he's like, oh, I'm like, I've actually realized I've never sent anyone a gratitude stack, not even Garrett.
Yeah.
And so anyways, that was my intention this week, but I didn't realize you have to get a whole account set up and everything. He's like, well, I'll have Sammy set up an account for you.
It's easy.
And I was like,
it takes 10 seconds.
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, okay. So anyways.
Yeah. So, and to kind of jump on it, and I think this is a really good conversation to have because in the room you have boss and you have employee, but also we work together so much side by side that Danielle and I are literally always together. It's inevitable that you are going to piss someone off that you're always with and they're going to piss you off. So let's just address that. It's inevitable. I'm so sorry. It doesn't matter if it's your husband, if your wife, if it's your work wife, if it's your boss, your employee, your assistant. It doesn't matter. When you spend this much time together, you are going to get upset at some point and feelings are going to be hurt. And I say, that's okay. That is very normal in any kind of relationship. You're never going to avoid that. And even if you think you're avoiding it, you're not, because things happen. People have bad days.
Right.
So even going into and the reason that we are being so honest about the conversations we had and why they were so difficult is because, God, I might even cry now. It was a really hard conversation because even going into it, Danielle was, so essentially what happened is, like I said, one video was put up wrong. Danielle was like, motherfuck, guys. And we were like, we're handling it. And then she read a message wrong and then came back hard. And I was like, son of a, what the fuck? And we're in the salon. It was just a crazy day.
Right.
And being in that meeting, it literally started off with Danielle being like, Ani, I'm upset with you. And I was like, not even taken aback. But for me, I think part of it was oh shit, I felt like I was being thrown under a bus. I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm fine now. And so even hearing that, it hurt me to know that I had upset you and made you feel disrespected in a time when I never meant to do that.
Well, I even realized too in the whole thing, like I'm like, in my attempt to be in control, I lost respect for not you, but the processes that I put in place.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's what I realized. I was like, shit, because sometimes I'm like, hey, I don't ever want to lose creative direction of my company, right? But I also have to respect the process of the creative direction that I have you help me put in place, right?
Yeah.
And so I would look at it as Ani was kicking back at me, and I'm like, damn it, Ani, we're doing this. But we call that our domino effect. Like a lot of times, because you're more in the trenches than I am, which I'm like, that's why I hired you. That's why I have you.
And I like being there, to be clear.
And I can't remember if it was Jeff or Katie, but they were like, because I was like, I don't ever want to feel like I'm not a part of the details. And they're like, but Danielle, like you don't want to be that involved in the details. That's why there is this process. And so you have to trust this process. If you change one thing in this process, now we're cool with that, but there is a domino effect of that. And I'm like, oh, and I didn't see all that other things. I just looked at it as like, Ani's being stubborn, Ani's kicking back, Ani doesn't respect me. But what we kind of came to is I was like, Ani, in situations when we have this conversation, even if I'm mad, like I need you to fight back. And I think that's one of the things. And what do we come up with
we say, Danielle, word? There's a ripple effect.
Yes.
So now even inside of that, because that's the thing. And I feel like, you know what? I almost feel like I get a bad rap because I'm loud, I'm very outspoken, and I'm not a yes man. God, I've just never been, even if I were to try, like it's literally not in my nature to be like.
Your brain plays out every like little loophole.
I spiral.
Yes.
Imagine like a lightning bolt when lightning hits and it goes hink.
Right.
I feel like that's my mind. And so for me, to like being a yes man doesn't work. And if I hear something and I'm like, oh shit, that's not gonna work, I'm gonna say, but wait, hold on, now I need clarity. And I took a quiz once. I remember it was like a personality test. My personality is literally called the questioner, saying that you will ask questions to like your dying breath to get clarity and understand. And I know I'm like that, but I'm also aware that can come off as very like stubborn, like, why are you asking me so many fucking questions? Do what I say. And it's like, because I need clarity.
Right.
And then it was really interesting because we had a conversation a couple weekends ago where we were going back and forth. She's like, we're doing this. And I'm like, wait, but why this, and she was like, no, we're doing it. And we were really butting heads to where I was like, okay, this isn't helping now. Like me asking questions, it's not coming across correctly. She's fucking pissed at me. I'm pissed at her now. Like
we needed a minute.
Yeah, to where I literally was just like, I go, okay. And I let it go. I said not another word about it because I'm also aware enough to know like when my temper is, not even my temper, but I guess like, when I'm getting frustrated and like, it's better. There's a saying in Spanish that doesn't translate as well, but it's essentially like, sometimes you look prettier with your mouth shut, which means sometimes you just need to shut the fuck up and just take a deep breath, walk away, and be prettier with your mouth shut. Like I was raised hearing that, which is really funny. And so in that conversation, like I was like, in my mind, I'm like, Danielle's not listening and she thinks I'm being a dick. And in your mind, you're like, Ani's being a dick.
Well, in my mind too, I was like, Ani's not listening. Because I was like, Ani, I'm not going against the program. See, look, this is why it works. And then you were finally like, fine. And I was like, see, she gets it. She agrees. But really, you didn't. You were just like, I can't. It was almost like we were in this, like, I'm like, I want you to want to understand me. You know what I mean? Like,
why don't you understand me?
Yeah, like, I doesn't. But now when you're like, okay, really look at the ripple effect of this. I'm like, oh, I only saw what was in front of me. I didn't see 20 steps down the path.
Yeah. And that's what I think was a really like interesting thing that and I'll say like, I feel like questions are viewed like, yes, as retaliation, as kicking back, as being stubborn. But me, and this is something I tell my students, I would rather them ask 500 questions and have clarity than to leave confused.
Right.
And I feel like maybe that's like how I live my life, where if I don't get it, it's not me being a dick, it's me being like, I don't get it. I need to understand. And also I need to understand, not because I'm like, fuck Danielle, my company, kick you out. It's I need to understand so I can do my job.
Yeah, so you can correct the process. Yeah. Or if we are taking a left and a right, then why are we doing that? And like,
and like, cool. Like, I'm down for lefts and rights. I feel like this company was founded on lefts and rights. And that's a good thing. You have to be able to like change when change is needed.
Right.
I'm never against change. It's in order for me to do the job that I was hired, that I feel I show up very well in, that I feel like I'm really good at. Can I always be better? Yes, I'm not perfect, but to do what I'm here to do, I need a certain level of clarity.
You know what, though? I was like even thinking like as I walked you guys out the door and I can't remember what I said, but I looked at Katie and it was something about details and I was like, I know. What did I say?
We basically ingrained this in stone. It was such a great moment for us.
Well, I want to say in this moment, I felt like there was a voice that was like, Danielle, let go of your ego. These two women they've got your back. And I was like, how many times as a boss are we like, well, fuck you, you're dead to me. Like, I'm the boss. And I was like, let it go. Like, and so I was like, I just realized something about myself. And I don't remember what it was.
And she said, you guys know what I realized? She goes, I feel like I keep saying like, I need to be in the details. I need to be in there and they'll respect me because that's how I'm going to show up. And she said, what I'm realizing is like, that's not actually my role. And me trying to do that is actually causing more chaos for you guys. And we were like, yeah. Because even in the meeting, one thing that we really spoke about, and guys, this is for all of you business owners, like this goes across the board. Danielle and I are always so willing to like throw ourselves under the bus because it's a matter of like, if we don't share what we've learned, like how the hell are you going to learn and grow too? And even inside the meeting, Danielle was like, okay, but if I don't see all the details, then how do I let you know I want to change something? And we're like, you say I want to change something.
And then you guys tell me the ripple effect of changing it.
And then we say, that's exactly all you need to do. You need to say, hey, something is telling me, don't turn left. We're making a right. We're like, the only time it doesn't work is when you're like, we're going to make a right. First thing, pull the e-brake, then turn 45 degrees. Then we're like, wait. And that's when we're like, hold on. You want to go right? We'll go right. You want to end up in that town? Perfect. Let us get you there, knowing that we have like, we're neck deep in 1,000 other things. And we know like, yeah, you change one thing, it is a ripple effect.
And I think too, I was so frustrated with, because we did change a little bit of things inside the academy and how it was structured. And I'm always like, this is definitely going to work and it's definitely going to get a home run. And this is, and then when it doesn't, I'm like, I'm so irritated. And I'm like, I just get irritated at the process. And I'm like, okay, well, why did we see this? Where do we need to go? And how do we change this and fix this? Right. And sometimes it's even like, okay, well, there's no guarantees in marketing. There's no guarantees in selling. It's all like testing and figuring out what works. And so that was like, I'm like, we need to bring back some of the stuff from even last year that maybe worked and implement it into this year and that kind of thing. So those are changes as a boss. I'm like, okay, I trusted the process, but we all have to kind of like collaboratively look at what's working and what's not and the results and then decide, okay, this makes sense to make a left or a right, other than me just being like, because I feel like I want to take a left. This is a waste of money. Let's take a left, right?
Well, and then I feel like because, for example, Katie and I are so like deep in it that sometimes as you as the boss and like the owner of the company, and for all of you that own companies, if you hire other people to handle things, know that you won't have an eyeball on everything. So sometimes even like when Danielle comes to us, she's like, this isn't working. We're like, wait. We're not even done putting it together.
Right.
You can't say the Lego house is garbage when it's still missing a whole little thing.
In my attempt to control, I was losing control because of my lack of respect for the processes and the team members that I'd hired. And I was like, oh my God, I saw him. I just saw myself.
Well, and then it's so funny because being on the other side, knowing that like we'd already gone at it the weekend before, now we were going at it again, and something that even Jeff, I love that he said, he's like, Danielle, you want someone to kick back. He's like, you don't want someone to say yes to everything because they have eyeballs elsewhere. And and that was in a conversation that Danielle and I had to have. I'm like, anytime I'm like, hold on, it always comes with respect. I'm like, I'm not trying to, I go, just in case it needs to be said, I don't want to take your company. I don't want the company. I don't want that responsibility. I want to do my job.
I think too, because I've had so many other people in my life where I'm like, there can't be two queens in the fucking castle. Like, so I always, part of me is a little guarded because I'm like, what are your intentions? You know what I mean? I'm like, you say you're all about like the students, you say you're all about the teaching, you say you're all about the growth. And then I've seen it several times where I'm like, well, shit. Like, so that went a different direction of like not what I was thinking at all. So I think I am a little guarded in that sense because I don't want to ever feel like people are like using me to, you know what I mean? But
so I'm going to say something and I'm going to cry, and it's not even my story. I don't know why I'm going to cry. Something that I realized about you a really long time ago was that you've never actually been able to fully count on a person. You left the church and they turned your back. Your family thought that you were fucking crazy for leaving the church and marrying Garrett. Everybody knows the story of you and Garrett. There's been problems with your sister. I've seen friends come and go. And I realized that such a long time. I'm like, God, Danielle, I'm like, I know part of her doesn't fully trust me because she's never been able to fully trust anybody else. Like nobody, even the people that you should have been able to count on. And I've accepted that about you. I've seen it about you and I know that. And so I know I'm like, for me, to
Now you're
me,
gonna make me cry.
well, to me, just so you know, we're friends. Like, you are my friend. You're my boss. Yes, I respect the shitty, but you're also my fucking friend. And I sometimes have to remind myself, like, Ani, in moments of like fighting with Danielle and colliding with her, keep showing up. Danielle, I tell myself, I'm like, Danielle loves you. She likes you. She cares for you. She may not show it in the easiest of ways, but she's just guarded. And I tell myself, I'm like, it'll be okay. She, in your own time, in whatever time it is, she will come to see that. I'm not fucking leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm not turning my back on you, on the company, on the students. Like I have said, and I've been through a rough path to get where I'm at. And I'm like, if none of that scared me away, nothing will fucking scare me away, which is why I'm like, if I have to collide with Danielle, I will fucking collide with Danielle. If I have to collide with Garrett, like I'll fucking throw down. I'm okay with it. Because I remind myself, you need to see that you can count on me.
Yeah.
And it might take another year, 10 years, and that's okay. But I remind myself where you came from and what you had to get through to be where you're at. And that always puts me in a place of perspective of like, trust is earned, respect is earned.
I think I never really thought of it about it that way. I've always just like been like I don't think I've really paid attention to how much I went through to get to where I'm at. And I mean, I probably am very guarded because down to how I was raised, then even with Garrett, he cheated on me when I was pregnant with Ruby. Like, I just felt like I wanted to give people my heart and I kept getting fucked over. And so I am very guarded, but I'm also very strong. Damn, you, Ani, got me to cry. But I never thought of it as that perspective. And I think that's why I have a hard time letting people into my bubble because I'm like, I don't know if I can trust you. Are you a safe person? And now I'm like aware of like the signs, like when we see somebody at the salon or at work where I'm like, this person's intentions are not, they're on the ledge, which means they could go one way or the other, which means I'm a yes or a no person. If you're on the ledge and I think you might fuck me over, like you're out. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's probably a lot of why I react the way I do. But I will say, like, even though, like, Garrett and I fully trust him, but it took me a long time.
You guys have been together, what, 17 years? 16 years?
I don't even know.
A long time.
I'm like, how
almost
old am I?
2 decades. And that's why even for me, and, you know, being at that meeting when you were like, Ani, what the fuck? I was crying pretty much instantly. And for me, it wasn't even, I was quote unquote in trouble. For me, it was like, she still doesn't fully trust me. But then I left and I went home and I'm like, that's okay. Because at this point, like, you're not scaring me away. Conflict isn't scaring me away. Change isn't scaring me away. Like, I'm fucking ride or die. And you might not see that now. And that's okay. Like, I accept you for where you are and where our relationship is at, knowing that it will keep growing because I'm not fucking going anywhere. Unless one day you're like, please leave, don't come back. And even then I'd be like, I don't think you mean that. See you tomorrow at work. Like, and that I think was like, I put myself in your shoes and not just the shoes of who you are today, but I always remind myself of like what you had to go through to be who you are today, and knowing like, and I've been through some here with rough times. I've been in the rough times, knowing that it is hard. And every time someone fucks you over, like, and this goes for all of you, like anytime an employee does shitty shit or they steal stuff or they like go behind your back or a friend does it, like it builds up your wall a little bit more. And that's okay in a way because you do have to protect yourself. But then I remember like, I don't let people in super easy. Like eventually I'm like, okay, the door's open, come on in. Right. But even I'm kind of like an arm's distance person until I'm like, okay, maybe a little bit less and a little bit less until they're in. So
I even feel like with Garrett and I have to there's times where I'm like so frustrated with him. But because we've gone through so much together, I finally got to, because there was like a 5-year time period where I was like, I fucking want out. Like, and I think he was the same way. And both of us were like 1 foot on the, like 1 foot in the door. We were like, I don't know. And then finally it got to this place where we regained trust and respect for one another. And I still have some of the feelings about Garrett where I'm like, you're just fucking annoying me right now. Like but then I'm like, I remind myself, I'm like, Danielle, never throw away your experience that you have and what you've built together and how strong you are based off of like one shitty moment. Like keep yourself in check. And I have to remind myself, like you went through so much and you've grown so much. Don't let this shitty moment literally like sabotage,
wreck everything.
Like wreck 17 years of history, right? And so that when I remind myself of things like that, that's when I'm like, okay, because I love this person, I need to have this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so even for you and I feel like our trust has like kind of, we've gotten better and better and better. And this is probably the first time in a while, probably since I was like pregnant, where I was just, I don't know what it was. And I'm realizing it was like a me thing, but I'm realizing I'm like, I kind of start to push people away too. Like, you know what I mean? Like you got to fight hard to stay in my world. But when you do and you show up and you fight hard, I'm like, oh, you've earned my trust. Like I keep pushing you away and you keep fucking showing up.
That's, that's what everyone said to me. They're like, oh, you're like a cockroach. You don't go away. I'm like, insulting, but thank you.
Thank you.
But really like, that was a really hard time. And you and I, man, those days we were knocking heads, but I was like, no, I'm not backing down on this. You're like, I'm not backing down. I'm like, then we're just going to keep doing this.
We're just going to keep brawling.
We're going to keep doing this. And I think that's something important is to also recognize that and I know, we're going to make each other mad again another day. Like it's not going to be sunshine and daisies.
But having these moments where we understand each other a little bit more, when we get mad at each other, we can be like, hey, I need a minute to walk away. You know what I mean? Like,
yes.
It can literally be just where it's not going to be brewing. It's just like, hey, I got mad at you and I need to like go collect my thoughts. And then it's like, okay, now we can come back and have like a conversation.
Yeah.
But if you don't have pivotal conversations like this in your relationships, whether it's business, homework, whatever it is, you're never going to like round the corner of trust inside of that relationship. No. And so even though I hate conflict, I love the outcome, that confrontation, because of the outcome. I always am like, okay, well, where does this take me? How do I get there? Okay, then I'm willing to take on the conflict because I want to be a better person. I want to be a better boss. I want to trust people. I want to let them into my world. And so I just think in life, you have to force yourself to do uncomfortable things in order to grow as a human being.
Well, and not only that, if you don't allow, and I always say like conversations don't have to be like conflict and fighting. Yeah. Sometimes you're gonna butt heads and that has to happen. Like it truly just does. And that's okay. But you have to think, while it might be uncomfortable, it was for us like a 2.5 hour meeting. Was it uncomfortable for almost the full 2.5 hours? Yes, it was weird. I was crying. I looked like a dick half the time. I was
actually even a little uncomfortable, like coming to do a podcast with you, because I was like,
really?
I feel like we got in a fight and now we're good. But it's
low-key when you text me yesterday and you're like, where'd you get that dress? I was like, oh, so you're not mad at me still? But I didn't want to like bother you this weekend. I was like, I'm just gonna leave her be for the weekend, see how she feels on Monday.
That's why I was like, hey, should we do a podcast? Because I was like, I'm not really mad. I feel like I just need to there was like still a piece of me that needed a little closure.
Literally. And so it's so funny. Friday after the meeting, I was like, should I text her? I was like, I literally had your bubble up, and then I was like, no, I'm going to leave her alone. Let her get her massage. Then I was like, oh, it's date night. Then I'm like, Saturday's family day. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave her alone for the weekend. But I don't really brew. And if I do, I just end up stacking it. But I wasn't like, I didn't feel it brewing.
No, when you text me and you were like smileys with the dress, I was like, oh, good, she still likes
That's
me.
why I was like, hey. I was nervous about texting you too, which is so funny. Damn it. Next time I'll just be like, hey, girl.
Hey.
Hearts and smiley faces. Aww. But what I'm saying is, though, it might be uncomfortable for that 2-3 hours you're in that meeting, but what's going to be worse and what's going to last longer? Right. Saying nothing, letting story upon story upon story, because going from like, she's so argumentative and stubborn, that leads to like, God, this person's so disrespectful. Disrespect is like, she doesn't even like me. And after that, it's like, you know what? Fuck you, I'm out. And it's like, why let it get to that place when you could just feel weird for 3 hours and then you come to a place? And I feel like any hard conversation we've had, the other place has always been so much better to where we can grow until we hit the next hard patch and then we go over that. But it's better to keep doing that and growing than to just keep butting heads until you're like, you know what? Fuck you, I'm out.
Well, you know what's so interesting is like, you'll hear people I don't want to say who, but I've had people in my salon, they're like, every salon we've worked at, the girls are so mean and this and this and this, and like nobody ever likes us. And I'm like thinking like you're just gonna feel like you are repeating this, that nobody likes you. When are you gonna take some fucking accountability? Like, I think that accountability is such a crucial place, or a crucial thing to ask yourself in every relationship. Like, how did I show up? Because if you fully don't take accountability, you might find somebody in business or in relationships that's like kind of a better match, right? But you're going to repeat the same problems. Like, literally, I remember even being super young and married and being like, I don't want to be married to him anymore. And like, I call her the voice. The voice comes down and is like, if you don't figure this shit out, you're going to repeat it with somebody else. And I was like
people who are divorced 4 times.
And I'm like, okay. So I have this level of like commitment where I'm like, all right, I gotta figure this out, right? And I think it can go the same way in business, where if you're that boss that's always like, oh, I just can't find myself a good assistant. They're all garbage. I can't find a good assistant. I'm like, it might be you. Like, I think it's important to understand, like, if you're that person that's like, my salon staff just keeps leaving, like, how did you show up as a boss?
Well, and you have to think, look at the situation, take every situation and make it its own little bubble. What is the common denominator in all those situations? It's you. So I'm so sorry. But if you, just like Daniel said, if you're the salon owner that you're like, man, all assistants are garbage. I keep having walkouts. All these artists suck. Or if you're the person that you're like, good help is so hard to find. All that shit. If you go from salon to salon, business to business, and you're like, I don't know what's happening. Everyone's so mean to me.
Even when somebody, if they're like, my boss, she's controlling and this and that. I feel like she doesn't get me. I feel like this and this. I'm like, well, like maybe like how did you show up? Even if you feel like you're being taken advantage of or whatever it is, you have to ask yourself, well, how did I show up? Did I have these conversations with my boss? We have students all the time that are like commission-based artists and they're like, hey, like extensions are expensive. Like, I don't know how to bring this up to my boss. I feel like she's just kind of being a dick and like she's trying to take advantage of me. I'm like, well, how much communication have you had with them? Well,
have you had this discussion?
Like, have you had this discussion? Have you literally logically brought her something that says like, this is my cost for the hair, this is my cost for the service, and create an outcome where both of you guys win? Because if you're just say she's being mean, but you weren't a problem solver and didn't come up with kind of like essentially a plan, then guess what? You're just being the victim and you're not having clear communication. And even if you stop working for that particular person and you go work for somebody else, if you couldn't have those tough conversations there, chances are you're probably not going to have those tough conversations with another boss.
Well, and that's why even, the trainers that work for Natural Beaded Rose, they have some of their artists in the academy, and one of them came to us and she was like, I don't want to say who I work for, but I'm upset at the situation. And I'm like, oh, have you talked to Sally? Sally's not the name of the boss. I'm like, oh, have you talked to Sally, your boss? And she was like,
no.
She was like, huh. And I was like, I know exactly who you work for. I'm aware it's one of my trainers. Have you talked to this person? She's like, well, no. And I'm like, well, then I suggest you do. I didn't even go to my trainer. I did not tell them I had the conversation with the artist. And later on, I was like, and the artist came to me and they were like, did you tell this person? I'm like, no, and here's why. It's not my fucking place to do that.
Right.
Because you need to have a chance to learn and grow. Yeah. And if I'm going through the side door like these fucking crazy pageant moms, that doesn't help. They're insane, but like dance moms. But I'm like, you need to learn to have those conversations. And guess what? If you are not brave enough and bold enough and courageous enough to have that fucking conversation, guess what? You shouldn't be at that salon. Because I know that salon encourages open communication, and I hate to say this, but don't be such a coward.
Right.
Have a little bit of bravery and know that you're either going to walk away having stood up for yourself or you're going to stay because you made things better by having the courage to speak.
I always look at it as like, what do you have to lose? If you're in a situation where you're not happy on like a regular basis, but you're scared to have one conversation, you're already not happy. Like, what do you have to lose? And there might be moments where you're like, everything's fine. You want to like tuck it under the rug and you're like, everything's fine. And there's moments of happiness inside of bliss, but you have like this thorn that keeps digging you in the side. And then you're afraid to have these conversations. Why? You're already in pain.
It already doesn't work for you. So we are coming to the end of the podcast, guys. And I really just consider you, if at any point when we have been speaking, you are thinking of a particular person because you're like, oh, that's happening now or it's happened before, take a look at how you've shown up and the communication that you guys have and or have not had.
I have so many students who will like DM me or message, or I'll see it on social media and they're like, I felt like you guys were speaking right to me. And I'm like, I know. And it's like sometimes I'm going to bring up church. Sometimes when I'm in church and the pastor's up there and he's like, did I say it right?
Pastor. You nailed it.
Yes. And he's up there and I'm like, how does he know?
God, did you tell him to look at me?
So, but you know what? Like, if this show is speaking to you, obviously there's something that you're like, okay, I am that person. So it's like, again, taking that kind of like accountability and kind of owning where you're at in order to move forward. So you guys, thank you so much for listening. This is kind of like, I feel like I need to go home and take a shower.
I'm a little hot. I'm a little sweaty. So yeah, guys, thank you for being here with us. We actually did just sell out one of our NBR intensives, and we have so many people emailing us saying like, Hey, I missed my chance. We
I know.
actually will be releasing one more this weekend on Thursday.
You guys, we never, like, honestly, like I said, we have a ton of fulfillment for our academy, so we don't launch public classes that often. And when we do, it's a 20-person class. It's 2 days in Orange County, California. It literally sells out in 48 hours off of like 4 emails. Like, we're always like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Like, so if you're not on our email list, go to
nbr.education.
and make sure that you're on our email list. And then I do promote it on social media, but honestly, I don't scroll that much on social media and you might miss it. So make sure to check your emails if you are interested in future dates and details for those classes.
So thank you for being here with us at the Big Money Styles podcast, and we'll see you next week.